Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with David Smith. You're the CEO and co-founder or the lead analyst for InFlow Analysis. Is that correct, David?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And how long have you been affiliated with InFlow Analysis?
So funny. So I founded InFlow. So it was right after I'd left Gartner and around 2013, 14 or so. And I started working with my former boss at Gartner for a couple of years. And then after I was like, you know what? I want to do this on my own. I kind of was inspired from my former boss actually, and went on off of my own because I wanted to be more flexible in terms of how I cover the digital workplace, because my coverage is basically the digital workplace. And so how do I cover the digital workplace from soup to nuts, not just sort of siloed in one area, but the whole workplace holistically? And that's why I decided to go off on my own, sort of be more flexible. So I call myself a T-shaped analyst, spread wide but still go deep.
Very cool. So, tell us what InFlow Analysis is all about, how you help companies.
Yeah, so basically, the name InFlow, so little backstory. I used to be part of a rap group in college. And we would flow, rap is freestyle. And so InFlow came about because I wondered how does technology get into the flow of how people actually work? And so I thought of InFlow was like, okay, let's backtrack. Let's look at the whole digital workplace, right? So I started covering collaboration and communication technologies. And so it's like, how does that technology get into the flow of everyday business process? So whether I'm in sales, marketing, HR support, how does collaboration and communication get in the flow of how people actually work? And so that's how I sort of begin to look at the workplace, technology in the flow of how people actually get their work done.
Very cool. And you recently added AI to the business. What is the reason, the obvious reason behind that? But how does that help the business?
Yes, it's obvious. It's like it's the hot new thing. You gotta keep the lights on. But right. But basically, AI is interesting because AI becomes you remember that movie Limitless, right?
Yes.
Where I guess it was a little bit of an allusion to psychedelics and maybe Adderall or something, but but the idea was that you take this pill, right, and you get this superpower. So I look at AI as a bit of a superpower, right? And so I know there is some fear and anxiety to it, but I think it's more so that it can begin to aid you, in sort of brainstorming, ideation, and so forth. So how I got to AI was, just as part of being an analyst covering the tech space, you begin to see the evolution of AI, right? And I think a few years ago, when I think it was generative AI, with large language models, ChatGPT began to emerge, and you began to see, okay, this is interesting, but what can it actually do for business? And so my whole, partaking or getting involved in AI and research was that I've been looking at it for years now. But when ChatGPT and generative AI began to emerge, I'm like, oh my God, this is interesting for actual business purposes in different areas.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I've noticed when I talk to people about AI, because I'm in tech, and there's two camps. There's the people that think it's going to revolutionize the worworld, and there's the people that think it's going to be the end of the world. Do you kind of see the same thing?
Yeah, so like was alluded to, right? Like with the movie Limitless, there is that sort of anxiety. It's going to take my jobs, right? And then there is the sort of vendor hype where it's like, it can do all the stuff. It can wash your dishes and fold your clothes. And and the answer was like somewhere in between, right? There is a sort of a balanced, sober approach to it where what's the adage now? AI won't replace your job, but the person who knows how to use AI will, right? And so I think there is a lot of truth to that. I think AI, if you incorporate in your workflow, use it for what it's intended for, which is as an assistant, what Microsoft calls a co-pilot, right? If you use it in that sense, it can actually aid you, right? And so it can help you in upskilling and reskilling for different roles. So it won't replace jobs. So all that anxiety, if it replaces jobs, it won't do that. But using it can help you evolve as an employee and as a skilled worker.
Yeah, I mean, I liken it to, it's a tool. It's just like the internet, or
Exactly.
Excel. Although it is a little more advanced than Excel and some of the other tools.
Yeah, just a bit, yeah.
And lately, the big thing everyone's working on, because we're both in Silicon Valley, is agentic AI. Are you looking in any of that?
Yeah, so that's so funny. So I mentioned for the start of generative AI, right? Which was, the chat GPTs, the large language models, Gemini and Claude and so forth. But the agentic stuff is interesting because now you're talking about autonomous agents, right? And when we say agents, it's really about agency, right? These autonomous agents that have agency that can act on your behalf, right?
Right.
And then imagine an army of those agents, right? That can do minute little tasks, but acting in concert on your behalf, and so it's a wild, new frontier. Imagine a workplace, right? Business. You say there's something that you want to accomplish or get done that you just can't justify the headcount for, right? But now with agents, you can put an agent or a group of agents on that particular task that can do that you would never have gotten a full-time equivalent for in terms of headcount, but you can put agents on that. So there's things now that businesses can do with agents that they could have never done with human capital. So I think agentic AI is a new frontier, but there are risks, and I think a lot of businesses now have to figure out what are the ethical boundaries and guidelines that they need to sort of adhere to in terms of agents.
Well, I mean, that actually talks to the next thing. I mean, how do you balance the automation with the human touch, which you really do need in marketing, right?
Yes.
The agents help, but you still have to have humans execute, correct?
What's the term? You need the human in the loop, right? And so, the thing with agents is, right, while they're autonomous and they can do great things on your behalf, you need the human in the loop because you need explainability, you need transparency, right? Imagine in financial services, right? How have you come about this particular number? Right? You need someone to explain that. You need someone to explain the workflow, how that came about. So explainability and transparency is key, and that also aids in risk mitigation and so forth, especially in regulated industries. You need the human in the loop.
Well, and actually, this sounds like I'm going to tee one up for you, but AI is only as good as the data it's fed.
Yes.
And it sounds like you really do concentrate on the inflow of the data. So how do you balance that? I mean, how do you make sure that the data is correct?
Yeah, to your point, the biggest myth I hear is that AI is some kind of magical wand, right? A lot of leaders think they can just buy a tool and poof, their marketing problems are solved, right? That's just not how it works, right? Because again, garbage in, garbage out to what you're alluding to, right? And so AI is an amplifier. It's going to magnify what you're already doing. So if your strategy is a mess, if your data is a mess, guess what? AI is going to be a mess and deliver and execute messy things. And so a lot of companies, when they start AI strategies, they have to realize, okay, we have to clean the data, aggregate the data, because garbage in, garbage out. So data is king, queen, bottle washer, head chief, and chef.
and just funny, that's always been the case, right?
Always, right? Always.
It's just I think the difference now is that it happens so fast. I mean, what I say to people is, it took 100 years to go from more than 100 years to go from the Model T to Zooks, which is literally a couple miles from both of us, right? Autonomous vehicles that look like gondolas on wheels. Like, it's a computer with wheels, right?
Exactly.
ChatGPT came out, which was November of 2022. Everything has just accelerated.
Accelerated, indeed.
Right. And so that's where I think the real challenge is, and you tell me if you think it's true or not, is that I don't know how anybody can keep up with the acceleration.
Yeah, and I think because you're right. So I'm now the guy that's on a Friday evening reading through AI research papers, from the different vendors and so forth. So I'm no more fun on a Friday night, right? And so because I'm reading research, because everything it changes week to week, right? Well, just the other day we had the whole Chinese thing with Big Seek, right? Where they just now, oh my God, now we can be even more efficient. We don't need all this compute power. We can be efficient with these large language models. And so things change week to week. If you're a week out, you're already late and behind the curve. So things change week to week. But I think with AI, you don't want to try to boil the ocean. So my advice is always to start with low-hanging fruit, right? What's a high-effort task that doesn't take a ton of strategic brain power, right? A perfect example is like using a tool like Jasper to write your first draft of a social media post or blog ideas. But it's like find those small things that AI can do, because if because you can sort of go crazy and using all the tools, but try to find those things that you can do as a marketer or a business person first.
Right. And then we'll go more into my realm. I don't know how much you know about this, but one of the large vibe coding companies is within a mile or two of both of us, Replit. Have you looked into any of the vibe coding tools?
Yes. So vibe coding, so that's been, first of all, it's a cool new term, right? Vibe coding.
Right.
It's cool to say. But I think one of the things that I see with vibe coding is that you still need someone that knows what they're doing. For instance, right? So my brother is a graphic designer. And so you can go from take Figma or Canva or whatever. You can go from idea to a prototype in seconds now, right?
Yes.
But there's a lot, but you can't account for taste, because the reason that my brother is a graphic designer and he's a great designer is that he has taste. Yes, I know the brand colors and the swatch and all that stuff, but to put something together, whether it's a website or whatever, you need to have a designer's taste. And so while there's access now with AI to do things and vibe code, taste and skill level is still a thing that that needs to be accounted for.
Yeah, and it's funny because I see most of the vibe coding companies talk about how anybody can do this, and I've seen some of, and it's like, you still need someone who understands what React is. You still need someone that knows what a relational database is and how it works, right?
Exactly. Indeed. Exactly. Yeah, right. It's just like you can't account for experience and taste. Exactly.
Right. Because it never works. Like, I've never written a piece of code that worked the first time. Maybe never, maybe a couple times, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
And AI is the same. It writes code, but it might not be exactly what you want.
It hallucinates, and then how do you debug? If you've never debugged before, how do you debug, right? And so if you're vibe coding, you can't, and you're not familiar with debugging, you're lost. Exactly.
So let's pivot to your clients now. What challenges do you have, introducing AI to them, right? And how do you overcome that? Because a lot of people are either like, oh, we got to do it, or oh my God, I'm so scared.
So it's what you sort of alluded to before, that whole anxiety piece of it, where there's a lot of anxiety by AI replacing jobs, but also with that anxiety is the fact that AI is everywhere. So all my clients, everyone wants to understand, because everyone's heard of AI, everyone wants to get involved, but don't know where to start. So there's the anxiety piece of it. So I advise my clients, again, I think I was saying it before, start small. Whatever area you want to bring AI into, make sure your data is right? Aggregate your data, clean your data, make sure that's right before you feed that into any sort of AI system. But think of small task workflows that AI can be brought to bear on in small steps. Whether that's I see a lot of use case within contact center, customer experience, call centers and so forth. Those are some key place you can bring it into, things in terms of our productivity, maybe using AI to, write drafts and emails, and like I mentioned before, social media posts. But find those small areas that AI can be brought to bear on, right, to help and assist the human. But don't try to boil the ocean right away. You have to start small.
Yeah, and we'll end on this. AI, one of the first things AI really helped with was marketing. ChatGPT, marketing people were using it like crazy. But I think it's kind of, the basics of it is kind of, okay, you can actually sometimes tell now when it's an AI generated marketing pitch, right?
Oh my
where do
God,
where do you see it going in the future? And what is there anything about the future of AI that excites you, especially in terms of marketing and business?
Yeah. It's so funny you said that, right? So me, being, from, I started my career at Gartner. So I was, I'm a writer. We used to write reports, every week, every day, right? And I like M dashes, I like semicolons, but now I'm mindful when I use them, like, oh my God, people will think it's AI because, it looks so formal, but I'm a writer by trade. But so I can almost now be cognizant of don't be too formal because they'll think it's AI. And so, but I do recognize, it's funny, I do recognize when someone's using AI a lot. Because especially if I know the person, I'm like, that's not your voice. Or that's a lot of that is a lot of semicolons. That is those are a lot of M dashes. And or the famous AI startup where the evolution of the landscape of like you start seeing those words, you're like, no, it kind of sounds a little generic there. But again, I always tell people like use AI for ideation, brainstorming, but when it comes to actually writing stuff, you need to have and input your own unique voice and personality, or else it's gonna sound super generic. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but
well, I think you did, and it's funny too because with marketing, it can come up with these really cool catchphrases, but you got to A/B test them, right?
Exactly right. I mean, I talked to one product manager, and he uses AI. He's like, with a budget of 4 words, come up with a slogan for this particular product launch, and it's funny because what he's doing is he's limiting the amount of words and forcing himself to sort of be more budget conscious in terms of the message and be more concise. So there's creative ways you can use AI, but again, it's using it as an assistant creatively, not to replace you, but to help you.
Yes, I would agree. Well, David, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
Hopefully, since we do live close to each other, maybe we'll meet one of these days and talk more about AI, right?
Exactly. I'm close to downtown San Mateo. There's a lot of new restaurants and coffee shops. So yeah, we should do it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Have a great night or day.
You too, man. Yeah, it's a little overcast today, though, but yeah.
It is. I know. It actually rained last night here. Did it there?
Yeah. Yes, and it rained this morning, too. I was taking my son to school this morning, and there was some rain. Yeah.
Which is just unheard of here.
It's unheard. It's so funny. Coming from the East Coast, I moved here, it was several years ago, and it's a different East Coast rain and West Coast rain. People here have no idea how to drive. It's like, oh my God, there's water coming from the sky. Let's drive extra slow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I tell people, it's like, they say, is there anything you miss about the East Coast? Because I come from a much colder place. And I'm like, I miss thunderstorms. Thunder and lightning storms are really cool. You don't get them here.
At all. But I did see a cool rainbow today, which is awesome. There's way more rainbows around this area. So that's cool.
True. Yeah. Well, again, have a nice day and we'll be in touch.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye.